Ren is a broke virgin who runs away from his family and becomes a butler in a rich house. However, he realizes he's serving 4 busty mistresses, and they will do anything for a piece of his cake. It starts with Ren and his sister Mihato running away from home because their father treats them like his personal punching bags. The two want a new beginning and arrive at the port city of Nenohama, hoping they'll make it big here. Mihato suggests they split up and look for a job that would allow live-ins, but everywhere Ren goes, people turn him away because of his hideous appearance. Tired for the day, Ren aimlessly walks into the city and realizes that Senra is a famous musical conductor who is also the face of many albums and magazines. At night, he reunites with his sister, and when a guy asks if she would like it from the back, he immediately jumps in and scares the guy off. Since they failed to find any work, Ren suggests they go for a change in scenery. After Mihato displays her milk packs at the spa for some much-needed fan service,
that's what I'm talking about.
The siblings set up a tent in the middle of nowhere and boil water. While Ren is crying over having no place to live, Mihato pulls out instant ramen from her nether and spinach from her chug jugs so they can at least have dinner. Later that night, Ren wakes up from a nightmare about his father's violent antics and promises never to go back to that home while he caresses Mihato's cheeks.
That's weird.
The next day, Ren is still looking for a job when Miyu and her egg-like robot Nero pass by. Noticing how people have sausages in their hands when she passes by, she gives them something to let the love juices out. Oh! However, she suddenly collapses due to anemia, and Ren quickly rushes to help her up. Just then, Mihato shows up on the scene and is proud of her brother who's helping a damsel in distress. Ren then offers to give Miyu a piggyback ride, and after getting charmed by their clonery, she asks them to drop her home. Soon after, they arrive at a giant mansion and the servants immediately storm them, making the siblings realize they caught a big fish. At night, the two of them are offered dinner and Ren eats like his life depends on it. The butler of the house introduces them to the head chef Beanies, who gets frustrated when Ren pronounces her name with a P. The guy then compliments her food, saying it's almost as good as Mihato's, but Beanies says hers is better, which starts an argument between the two. Eventually, the butler has to step in and separate the two, but when tries to attack him, he Hadoukens his sorry self out of the window. Stepping out of the pool, Ren is shocked to run into Senra, who asks him who he is. After he introduces himself, the butler walks in to welcome Senra, but Ren hasn't had his fair share of humiliation yet. Despite getting knocked out cold, the man inadvertently manages to amuse Senra with his stupidity.
Stupid!
Later, Miyu asks them if they're traveling, and Mihato uses this opportunity to explain their situation. Soon after, Ren wakes up and learns that he and his sister have been hired to work for the 3 sisters, Senra, Miyu, and Yume. However, he must go through an exhausting 1-week training, which will determine if he can stay here or not. The sisters then formally introduce themselves one by one, but Yume, in her attempt to stand out, ends up looking like a weirdo. They're then introduced to the chief of security Nathose, the head of cleaning duties Haru, and the head servant Colonel. That night, Ren dreams about falling from a great height until Mihato shows up as an angel and saves him. Just then, Beanies traps her in a net and vows to make her work until her back gives out. When Ren tries to fight her, a giant colonel emerges from the ground with all 3 sisters in the palm of his hand. They collectively decide Ren's existence is worthless and blast him to smithereens, but that's when the guy wakes up from his dream. Just then, Beanies shows up with a gong and prepares him for his first day. Colonel then officially makes them a part of the Kuji family, and while the siblings celebrate, Beanies could care less about it. Later, Colonel puts Mihato on catering duty and adds Ren to the assault squad, where he is supposed to do weird side quests like an unwanted child. When Mihato sternly asks Beanies to treat her brother well, she reveals Ren can work as Miyu's personal attendant. Later, Ren and Nathose are tending to the garden when Yume shows up all commando and leaves for school. He then notices how Beanies rushes to the front door to see Senra off and wonders if he'll have to do the same for Miyu. Heading inside, he sees Haru moping and offers to help, and Haru gets all emotional because Ren remembered his name. While mopping the living room, Ren gets nervous because Miyu keeps staring at him and even says he looks bangable in the butler attire.
What do you mean by that?
At night, the whole family gathers at the dining table to have dinner, and the sisters explain how it's a custom for all of them to eat together. Later, they ask the colonel to share stories about his youth, and he tells them about the time he was separated from his squad in a sandstorm. Following that, Beanies helps Senra in the bath, Nathose tells bedtime stories to Yume, and Miyu is in her bed reading some very sussy stuff. The next day, Ren is moping again when he learns Miyu is a university graduate even though she looks like a lolly.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Later, Senra tries to force feed a cupcake to Miyu, causing her to get creamed on her face. Ren rushes to help her clean, but Senra gives him the side eye, stating she'll lick it clean off her sister. She then tries to feed her cream directly from her tongue, but Mihato shows up and saves the day. Later, Maya reveals that Senra has a habit of teasing people she likes and advises them to be careful. At night, Ren is heading upstairs when he runs into Miyu, who's letting nature carry her milk packs.
Yes! Yes! Yes!
Seeing his wild reaction, Miyu comments he'll never get any shoddy on his love pole if he keeps acting like a virgin before retreating to her room.
No! No! No!
The guy heads to the balcony to get some air, and when he runs into Nathose, they decide to stargaze together. Ren wonders if he's doing well on his job, and Nathose starts patting his head saying he's doing well. That's when he realizes Nathose always wanted to have a younger brother because she's pampering him like Mihato. For the next few days, Ren continues to work as a servant and even gets some hardcore training from the colonel. On day 6, he and Nathose are dropping Yume off at school when Ren accidentally bumps into a girl who turns out to be Mistina, a walking recipe for disaster. They enter the school and are welcomed by Keiko, who is in the same class as Yume and Keiko. Just then, Ageha shows up with her own WWE entrance and immediately knocks out her steward Kojiro for being late. She then introduces herself to the group and asks Ren what he excels at other than being plain stupid. The guy immediately starts cleaning her shoes, claiming the dirt ruins her beauty, which catches Ageha off guard. Later, while Ren and Nathose feed on the snack she gave them as a reward, Kojiro shows up and reveals he's jealous of them because Ageha gave them a reward. That night, Ren hits the bed fully prepared for his last day of training and gets suited up the next day even before Baines can sound the gong.
I understand it now.
He immediately heads out to do his chores but gets startled by Mistina, who asks him to give her back shots as a punishment for her sudden arrival.
Yes!
Just then, Keiko knocks her out and reveals they're looking for a yellow ferret and finding it is a part of club activity to increase their club's budget. Soon after, Ren finds the ferret inside the house and tries to catch it for Yume, only to break an antique in the process. After explaining the situation to the family, he heads outside to cool off and realizes he was acting aggressively just like his father. Just then, Miyu shows up and gives him a slap, explaining how his sister is begging everything to let him stay while he's here sitting alone like a pathetic loser. This gives him the motivation to tend to his duties again, so much so that he forgets to sleep the entire night. On day 7, it's time to announce the result of their 7-day trial, and Senra reveals Mihato has passed with flying colors. As for Ren, even though destroying the family pot is unforgivable, they have seen how dedicated he is to his work and allow him to stay as well. Mihato is assigned as a personal attendant to Miyu, and while Ren is still doing side quests, he is allowed to become an attendant to any of the 3 sisters when he's free. For the first day, he will be working as Senra's personal attendant, and Baines is not so happy about it. The next day, Ren walks into the bathroom and accidentally runs into Baines, who has her whole menu on display. He tries to calm her down by making her count prime numbers, but she asks him to count the number of punches she's going to throw at him instead. Later, Ren is in the car with the colonel, who advises him to be the best at everything if he wants to serve Senra. Just then, someone overtakes their car, but the colonel's fragile ego can't accept this, so he turns it into a scene from Fast and Furious. Later, they arrive at the hall where Senra is performing, and Ren realizes she's kinda smoking when he sees her perform. After practice, she meets up with the guys and gives half of her drink to Ren, who nervously starts to drink from it. When she confronts him, Ren admits he did it on purpose because it was like an indirect kiss. Seeing how much of a wimp he really is, Senra decides to make him her plaything. At night, Senra invites him to her room and asks him to give her a back massage. While Ren is trying his best to keep his North Pole in his pants, Senra turns around and asks if he's expecting a sloppy toppy in return.
What do you mean by that?
Just then, he hears Miyu calling him from outside the room, so he nervously runs off into the kitchen. Maya reminds him that Senra has a habit of teasing the people she likes and suggests he becomes her personal attendant instead of Senra's. Ren retreats to the balcony to clear his head of Senra, but his temperature skyrockets when Nathose walks in flaunting her milk packs like it's a fashion statement. When he enters the bathroom, he once again finds Baines with her melons out and gets his entire skeleton dismantled. The next day, he enters Senra's room but immediately leaves when he sees Miyu playing rock, paper, scissors with Senra, but without the rock and paper. Soon after, Miyu comes downstairs and collapses into Ren's arms. explaining how she was put through a 2-for-1 special against her will. She can no longer put up with Senra's antics and challenges her to a game of Kuji flag. All 3 sisters are given their team of personal attendants, and whoever manages to capture the other's flag gets to do whatever they want. Senra has Benise and Ren on her team, while Miyu has Mihato and her robot Nero. As for Yume, she has nothing to do in this event, so she decides to have a tea party with Haru and Natho-se. However, her servants really want her to be on top, so they split up to ensure she wins. As soon as they leave, Senra's whole team ambushes Yume and steals her flag, so Ren is tasked with keeping Natho-se at bay until the flag is taken to their own base. Natho-se knees him in the gut and tries to pass by, but Ren knows she has a brother complex and calls her Oni-chan to distract her. Natho-se is moved to tears and apologizes for hurting him, allowing Senra to place the flag in her base. As they leave to get Miyu's flag, Mihato meets outside and manages to lure Benise to her own base. By the time Senra arrives, Benise is all roped up and ready to have her guts rearranged. Just then, Ren shows up out of nowhere and runs back to his base after stealing the final flag. However, he runs into Nero, who blows him away with an ultrasonic attack. Despite being knocked down, Ren refuses to let go of the flag and Miyu can't force him because she's petite and weak. In the end, Ren manages to place the flag in his base and win the whole thing. That night, Senra praises him for showing resilience and uses this opportunity to make Miyu walk side to side for the whole week. The next day, Ren fancies Miyu with a cup of tea, but she ends up burning her mouth and whips him for not serving her a cold tea. While Mihato helps her cool down with a popsicle, Senra confronts Ren for causing injury to his master. She advises the colonel to send him to the island for training, but later suggests they all go together. Soon after, they arrive at the island and Senra, being a total freak, hides Miyu's swimsuit so she has to walk around with her assets on full display.
You sussy bata!
Meanwhile, Ren is excited to step into the water, but is stopped by the colonel, who takes him to the butler's den, a special place where only those who serve prominent families are trained. He then makes him sign a sussy document and takes him into the den through a dimly lit cave. Inside, Ren sees Kojuro chained up with weights trying to serve tea to Ageha as part of his training. When he shows up late, she electrocutes him as a punishment and shames him for being so inefficient at his job. After Kojuro passes out from exhaustion, Ageha notices the colonel, who asks if they can join the training. Ageha welcomes them in, and the colonel teaches Ren how to make perfect tea. When he pours hot water into the teapot, the leaves start dancing, which indicates that he's done a splendid job. He then asks Ren to replicate this technique, but immediately starts hitting him when he fails the first time. Ren argues he'd die before he masters this technique, but the colonel pulls out the form he signed earlier, which says he is free to do anything he pleases with Ren until he's either dead or ready. Ren is then forced to train under difficult circumstances, while Mihato watches from a distance. On the other hand, Senra and Miyu drink to the point of exhaustion and end up sleeping with each other. Meanwhile, Natho-se and Benise hit a casino where the latter ends up winning a lot of money. However, she loses all her money by being greedy and even takes loans from shady people to continue playing. At night, Ren finally returns from his training and meets Yume, who makes tea for him and praises him for trying so hard. After she leaves, Ren notices an intoxicated Miyu walking with her bits out and tends to her. She orders him to join her in the bath and makes him wash her back. When she starts to feel sick, Ren puts her back in bed but accidentally wakes Senra up. She starts teasing him and asks him to flash his ding-dong, but Ren quickly realizes she's as high as Snoop Dogg. Later, he shares tea with Mihato and then heads back to the butler's den, where the colonel orders him to brew some tea. Unlike before, Ren manages to do the given task with finesse, impressing both the colonel and Ageha. When she asks what he would like as a reward, Ren says he'd love to see her smile, which makes her blush. Colonel then passes him on the entry test, so the guy happily runs back to make morning tea for Miyu. Meanwhile, Ageha is in the bathtub and can't shake off how Ren is a certified Ohio Rizzler. Ren then serves tea to Miyu and then coffee to Senra, who is amused to see how he's able to prepare things for her even before she asks him to. Ren then asks where Benise and Natho-se are, only to learn that they haven't come back since last night. Meanwhile, Benise loses the money loaned to her in gambling and is told to pay with some oral support.
What do you mean by that?
To pay up the debt, Benise and Natho-se take the job of waitresses at the casino until the Mafia boss tells them to get to the pole dance. Just then, Senra shows up with the whole squad and tells the guy she's taking them back. He demands $1 million to let them go and even forces his hand on Benise. Ren and Nathose quickly jump in for a fight, but the colonel stops them and decides to show them the alpha male way of resolving conflicts. Later, the bunny girls are put behind bars and the Mafia boss challenges the colonel to a game. If he wins, the debt is cleared, but if he loses, Senra will work alongside Benis and Nathose in the casino. The two engage in a game of roulette, and the Mafia boss rigs the wheel to increase his chances of winning. However, Colonel manages to make the ball fly and land in the desired pocket simply from his alpha male aura. At night, the whole squad is released from the casino, but Ren is not happy about the fact that Benis was the one who got them into this mess. The next day, the whole gang engages in different beachside activities, and Miyu asks Ren to put sunscreen on her back. While doing so, his hand slips into the uncharted territory and Nero starts running after him to punch some holes in his body. Meanwhile, a young girl peeps at Benis from behind a tree, which catches her attention. Later, she goes grocery shopping with Ren and Nero, and Ren compliments her bargaining skills. Just then, she catches the girl from earlier trying to steal Ren's wallet, and instead of making a fuss, she advises the kid to become something he can be proud of. She then sends her off with a peer, and Ren notices she's a nice person even though she treats him like garbage. Just then, a guy asks her out on a date, and she immediately shows her true colors. Later, Ren discusses this with who reveals he found Benis somewhere in the slums of a distant city. She lost her parents in her childhood and was adopted by her uncle, who sold her to a diner as a worker. After getting fired from there, Benis roamed aimlessly in the slums until the Kuji family hired her. Just then, he notices Benis leaving for the market and decides to go with her. Once there, the two start arguing as usual until Benis sees the guy who asked her out trying to kidnap the girl she helped earlier. She tries to intervene at first, but when the two of them get outnumbered, the kidnappers take them along and leave the girl behind. Both of them are tied up in a basement, but the arguments don't stop even when their life is on the line. Benis figures they rented this place to get some shotties on their ding-dongs, but have failed so far, and Ren gives them his condolences because their first catch is the most insufferable woman on planet Earth. When one of the kidnappers punches Ren, he claims this feels like a breeze compared to what the colonel put him through, causing all of them to gang up on him. Later, they throw both of them into a different room, and Ren reveals he provoked them on purpose because this way they won't swipe her V-card. Benis argues she's capable of taking care of herself, but Ren advises her to rely on the people she considers family. Meanwhile, the squad learns that Ren was abducted and Senra immediately launches a search operation. Back in the basement, Benis shares her hardships with Ren from the time she was homeless and how the colonel saved her from becoming a burglar. She had told the guy that she was good at cooking, so the colonel had her make several dishes and tasted all of them. In the end, he decided to hire her as a chef and taught her how to live with pride. Benis then breaks free from the ropes, but Ren got such a beatdown that he can't move a muscle in his body. Despite that, he knows he will be fine because he has Benis by his side. Later, as the kidnapped are chilling in the living room, the sisters enter the building and take two of them out. Senra then confronts the remaining two, and when one of them tries to attack her, Colonel blows him out of the living world. The last guy tries to make a run for it, but Mihado stops him midway and removes him from the occasion using a mere hairpin. Ren is still beaten up, so the colonel decides to carry him on his back as they walk home. On the way, they run into the girl who informed them about the kidnapping and decide to make him a part of their family. A few days later, Mistina and Keiko show up at the mansion looking for Yume because she's late for the club activities. They establish that Yume is a forgetful girl with the memory of a goldfish, so Nathose has to take care of pretty much everything for her. She runs in to remind her that she forgot her lunchbox, but even Nathose is shocked when Yume runs off to school in full commando mode. After fixing her wardrobe malfunction, Nathose worries about Yume, so Ren decides to help her solve Yume's concerns. Just then, Benis comes running in and scolds Nathose because she accidentally mixed up Yume's lunchbox with Senra's.
Stupid!
By this time, Yume is already headed for school, so Nathose has to speedrun the delivery. Later that night, Ren brings Yume a cup of tea but finds her dozed off on the study desk. While tending to her, he notices a notebook by her side and makes the mistake of opening it. The book is filled with Yume's delusions, which pulls him into one of the scenes. Inside the scene, the city is attacked by a bear monster. And while people are running for their lives, the three sisters show up like adult Powerpuff Girls to save the city. Senra and Miyu fight the bear simultaneously. They both prove ineffective against the bear. In the end, Yume is the only one left standing and transforms into a magical girl, becoming the last hope of humanity. The bear is so terrified of her power that he offers $300 million to let him walk free, but Yume hits her with a beam so strong that it can be seen from space. After defeating the bear, Yume becomes the hero of the city and Ren realizes she has a strong self-centered delusion. Just then, Yume wakes up and panics when she finds her note in Ren's hands. Instead of making fun of her, Ren decides to have her talk to the entire family to bring out her true personality. Mihato asks if she has any hobbies, and Yume reveals she's good at separating poison mushrooms from normal ones. Following that, they discuss how to bring out her feminine side, and Miyu demonstrates how to act cute. When that fails, they try to bring out her delinquent side by acting like gangsters around her. They soon realize she's too innocent to be a gangster, so Senra suggests bringing out her personality by wearing a PE uniform at all times. However, Yume worries Senra will outshine her in that aspect and throws a full-blown tantrum. They even ask for her spirit animal to better understand her emotions, but when Senra starts acting like a cat girl, Yume runs off thinking she has no personality of her own. Moedo scolds Senra for being a jerk, but she explains that Yume must overcome her issues by herself. Meanwhile, Yume is on the lawn wondering what to do with herself when Haru arrives to knock some sense into her. He reveals he had been observing everything from a distance and he doesn't interfere because he likes to keep a low profile. Eventually, they both start crying over being left out, but Ren and Nathose arrive to cheer them up. They take Yume to her room and tell her to keep her spirits high, hoping she'd one day magically stop being a dull idiot. When Yume seems hopeless, Ren gently grabs her hand and tells her to develop her personality by natural means rather than asking others. He then explains how he wants to serve her the most out of the three sisters, which means she has the most charisma.
Yeah.
This somehow cheers Yume up and she starts comparing her issues with the sun, explaining how her problems are minuscule compared to the sun. In the end, she decides to become a CEO who oversees thousands of employees and asks Nathose to be by her side to give not only moral support but also some oral support. She also thanks Ren for encouraging her and even gives her a kiss as a reward. Nathose also joins in to show her appreciation, making him locked and loaded from some hardcore bonazone. The next day, Ren wakes up Senra and reminds her that a guest is coming over today. However, Senra is ovulating and pulls him in, claiming she won't wake up until Ren stretches her love tunnel.
You sussy baka!
Banus is losing her mind watching this from a distance and refuses to serve him food during breakfast. Just then, a bunch of helicopters and jeeps show up at the front door, and Senra reveals they're here for the guest. Soon after, Ageha makes a grand entrance and deploys her men inside the house, who turn the whole place upside down, but in a good way. After Ageha settles in, the colonel reveals she was doing martial arts training with Kojuro when an accident took place. Turns out, Kojuro was practicing near a waterfall but fell when he got a glimpse of Ageha's honeypot. It will take at least 3 months for the guy to recover, and since Ageha has become too harsh with her servants, her father has sent her here to unlearn the bad habit. When the gang argues that she shouldn't have renovated the whole house without their permission, she bribes them by giving them the things they like. She convinces Senra with baby pandas and Colonel with gold, but Miyu claims there's nothing she can give her that'll change her mind.
Are you sure about that?
However, Ageha brings out 3 boys who give a live performance of a song that she really likes and manages to win her over as well. In the end, she tells Ren that he will be her personal attendant from now on, and the guy has no choice but to submit due to Senra's orders. She asks him to bring her some tea, and after several failed attempts and beatdowns, he finally nails the taste. While the whole house is busy doing their own thing, a couple of shady guys are outside the mansion hoping to get their hands on Ageha. The next day after school, Ageha decides to train with Ren on the lawn, but no matter how hard he tries, she wipes the floor with him. Meanwhile, Kojuro is getting a sloppy toppy from the nurses, but the guy is so used to being treated like garbage that he actually misses Ageha. At night, Nihanto tends to his wounds and expresses her frustration over people not noticing his condition. However, Ren believes the beatdown he got from his father was way worse than anything he's experienced here so far. The next day, Ren and Ageha are returning from school when she reveals that her family is among the world's top conglomerates that have expanded to diverse fields. Ageha herself is the heiress to the steel division and has been working since she was a child. Ren admires her for being so strong, but also explains that it's not okay for her to hit people with such pretty hands. Despite blushing red, she still keeps up her poker face, which makes him realize she's not violent but just stubborn. That night, the colonel has to leave the mansion, so he leaves the security in Nathose's hands. However, the shady guys from earlier see this as an opportunity to get inside. When they approach the gate, they see Nathose casting a detection spell across the mansion which will alert her of any unwanted presence. Meanwhile, Ageha is in the bath and has already noticed 2 military-trained men at the door. Not wanting to cause any trouble to the Kuji family, Ageha gets out of the bath to take matters into her own hands. Meanwhile, Kojuro is still in the hospital, hiding from the nurses who just want to get on his love pole. Back at the mansion, Ren enters the bath and notices that Ageha is running outside with nothing but a towel. Even after Natho says warnings, she slips past her, so Ren asks her to let him handle Ageha. The men are ready to put her to sleep with a poisonous dagger, but Ageha manages to knock them both out with ease. When Ren shows up to appreciate her, the plot gods decide to show him a good view of her milk packs, which also earns him a Team Rocket exit. She then explains that these guys are assassins hired by the Korea Company, which is a longtime rival of her family. Just then, one of the assassins tries to attack her with a poisonous blow dart, but Ren jumps in to take the hit. Luckily, Ageha manages to catch the dart mid-air and throws it back at the assassin's temple, sending him to a long sleep. While Nathose ties them up, they too walk back in, and Ageha apologizes for causing Ren trouble because he looks horrified. In reality, Ren is worried about Ageha because she is very young and already has assassins after her. Ageha is moved by his gesture and asks him to kiss her hand as a token of his loyalty, but when that doesn't satisfy her, she ends up kissing Ren on the mouth. Despite acting high and mighty for stealing his first kiss, she also hints at wanting to get back shots from him before leaving. Mihato is in despair watching her brother grow, but Miyu is there to comfort her. Weeks later, Senra comments on how their family has expanded with the addition of Ren and Mihato, which makes Benis jealous. Meanwhile, Kojuro is trying to crawl his way out of the hospital, but is once again swarmed by the nurses who want to taste his whipped cream. Later, Miyu barges into Senra's room and complains about Ageha overstaying, but Senra is just chilling with her baby pandas. Later, Ren walks Ageha and Yume to school, but is surprised to learn that Kojuro has fully healed on willpower alone. Surprisingly, Ageha chooses to ignore him and tells Ren she'll see him after school. Later, Miyu discusses the disturbances in their household thanks to Ageha, so Senra decides it's time to take some action. Meanwhile, Ren returns to the school to pick Ageha up and finds Kojuro waiting at the same spot. He claims Ageha has changed a lot and asks if anything happened in the Kuji family, but Ren decides to hide the fact that she kissed her. Soon after, Ageha arrives and Kojuro asks her to come home, but she locks arms with Ren and starts to walk away, leaving the man in despair. At the Kuji mansion, Ageha trains Ren on how to be a better fighter so he can dodge her attempts to give him a sloppy toppy. Natho notices that Ren has gotten much better thanks to Ageha, but she hasn't had the chance to tell him because Ageha doesn't leave her side even for a second. Ren then asks what she would like to have for dinner, and Ageha says she wants to eat something made by him. That night, the whole family suffers due to Ren's terrible cooking, and both Miyu and Senra agree that this has to stop. Later, Ageha invites Ren to her room and asks him to kiss her to show his loyalty, but the man panics and leaves her hot and bothered. The next day, the two of them continue to train, and Ren thanks her for turning him from a wimp to someone strong. She then demands another token of loyalty, but Ren hesitates once again. Just then, Kojuro shows up at the mansion and sees them kissing, which sends him into a frenzy. He attacks Ren for stepping out of the line, but Ren's training has enabled him to have a strong self-defense. The two start fighting like idiots until the colonel steps in, followed by Ageha, who punches Ren for fighting Kojuro in his current state. What'd I do? She then tells Kojuro to head back home because she has developed feelings for Ren and will be staying with him. Kojuro then asks if she would come home if he proves himself to be a better butler, and the sisters show up to accept his challenge. Their first task is to carry luggage outside, and even though the sisters have rigged the match to make Ren lose, the guy still comes out on top. The second task is about paying attention to the master's need, and Kojuro ends up winning that one. The final task is a trivia quiz to test their loyalty, and even though Kojuro has a huge advantage in this round, he is shaking in his boots for an unknown reason. As Ren tends to the guy, he learns that Kojuro hasn't fully healed yet, but is still trying so hard to bring back his master. Seeing him in so much pain, Ageha decides to head back home on the condition that he stays in the hospital until he's fully recovered. After she leaves, the house returns to normal and Ren is forced to tend to all three sisters at once as a punishment for ignoring their needs for weeks. On the other hand, Ageha is caring for Kojuro at the hospital, but she still hasn't given up on the dream of having Ren's babies. The next day, Miyu asks Ren to become her personal attendant for a while and keep track of her schedule. Later, Mihado and Ren bring Miyu breakfast in her room, and the latter is shocked to see her chug jugs on display. After Mihado helps her dress, Ren realizes she's kinda bangable.
What do you mean by that?
And creams his pants. Later, as Senra and the colonel leave the house in Miyu's care, Ren brings her coffee exactly how she likes it, which earns him some praise. At night, Miyu once again walks around her room with her assets out and hands Ren his lingerie to wash. She then makes him rub her back, but Ren is so excited he'd rather rub his ding-dong. After the bath, Miyu tells him to get himself together from tomorrow because he shouldn't be embarrassed around her master. Ren is so done for the day that he sleeps with his uniform on, so Mihado gives him a change and tucks him into bed. The next day, Ren continues his duties and is proud of the fact that he managed to bathe her without creaming his pants.
You sussy baka.
At night, Miyu decides to strengthen her bond with her attendants, so she decides to sleep with both Mihado and Ren. She asks Ren what his plans are for the future, and the guy says she wants to live happily with Mihado. Miyu is pleased to hear this and offers both moral and oral support to him. After she falls asleep in his arms, Ren can't resist the temptation to poke the peaches. However, Mihado catches him in the act and makes him beg for mercy. The next day, Yume tells Miyu that she couldn't do her assignment for the day and asks for her help. Miyu gets distracted when Senra shows up, prompting Yume to leave in despair. Later, while performing his duties for Miyu, Ren runs into Nero drilling holes into the toaster. As he tries to separate the two, it turns the whole kitchen into a circus until Miyu runs after them with a whip to discipline them. While running away from her, Nero runs out of battery, so Ren plugs him back in. By the time it recharges, Ren has already received the punishment for both of them, so Nero thanks him for making the sacrifice. Just then, Nero notices that a sum of money has been wired to Miyu, explaining how she has patents for many inventions and earns money without working much. He also reveals that Miyu is actually a genius inventor who skipped many grades in school and graduated at a young age, which surprises Ren. Meanwhile, Miyu is sad because she couldn't submit her career option form, but Nathose is there to motivate her. Inside, Ren sees Senra's interview where she mentions how much she respected her father and becomes envious of her. When he asks why Senra didn't smile the whole time, Miyu reveals it's because the interviewer only asked her about their late father. Later, Senra returns to the house in a foul mood and starts scolding Miyu, who immediately hands her the monthly expense and tells her to mind her own business. After she runs off, Senra comments that Miyu has become a delinquent, prompting Yume and Mihado to make their imagination run wild. Senra can't tolerate such nonsense and decides to teach Miyu a lesson, but Ren stops her, saying Miyu is simply taking a break. After Senra sees her own mistake, she goes to Miyu and makes up with her, thus resolving the conflict. At the dinner table, everyone gets excited to hear that Miyu is going to start her own business, but when Yume announces that she's gonna do a part-time job, no one pays attention to her. Saddened by being left out, Yume leaves the table and Nathose is the only one who notices her absence. Later that night, Miyu looks at her old birthday pictures and sheds tears because she's always left out of the family. Meanwhile, Nathose is praying to the stars, hoping she can become capable of protecting Yume's smile. The next day, she advises Yume to share her feelings with Senra, and Yume imagines the whole scenario in her head, which ends up with the sisters making up. After some encouragement from Nathose, she enters Senra's room, where she finds her trying to get on Ren's North Pole. Senra explains that she was in need of some sisterly affection, but Miyu sent Ren here instead. Yume argues that she is also her sister and deserves an equal share of her affection, causing Senra to embrace her. She then admits she had stopped loving Yume after she said something to her at their parents' funeral, but Yume was only a child and does not remember anything. Hearing this makes Senra upset, and even when Yume tries to make things right, she orders Ren to remove her from the room. Later, Ren tells the whole story to Miyu, but Yume thinks she might never be able to make it up to Senra. However, Ren tells her not to give up so soon and urges her to remember what happened that night. When Senra arrives, Yume begs her for forgiveness because she had no intention of hurting her, but Senra can't accept her apology until she remembers. Yume runs off crying, and when Nathose follows her, she asks to be left alone. Yume locks herself in the room even during dinner, but Senra continues to act like a jerk for no reason. Nathose, being Yume's personal attendant, refuses to eat without her and leaves the dining table as well. When she enters Yume's room with dinner, she fails to find her anywhere and tells everyone that Yume has run away from the house. Nathose blames herself for not staying by her side, and everyone runs off to look for her except for Senra. Before leaving, Ren tells Senra to pipe down the nonsense, explaining how she should be better than this since she's lost both her parents. Having come from a broken family, Ren starts yapping about how Senra has been unkind towards Yume. Despite his poor choice of words, his feelings resonate with the sisters, and Miyu promises to fix things between them. Meanwhile, Nathose finally locates Miyu in the city and embraces her, asking why she didn't confide in her. Later, they meet up with Ren, who encourages Yume to not give up on Senra. He then notices how Nathose is always praying to the stars, and she reveals it's because she's communicating with her family whom she lost in a tsunami. Despite failing to protect anyone that she loved, she found a new purpose in life when she started serving Yume. However, when Yume told her she wanted to be left alone, Nathose couldn't bring herself to take the first step. She thinks something similar happened with Senra and urges Yume to remember. It finally hits Yume that while she and Miyu were crying, Senra was acting indifferent to their parents' passing. Yume got scared thinking Senra was a robot with no emotions, but what she didn't understand was that Senra had to stay composed so she could take care of her sisters. Miyu then explains to Senra that Yume not only lost her parents that day but also her kind elder sister, which is why it was much harder for her. Meanwhile, Yume realizes what she did was really cruel and doesn't want to go back home because she's sure Senra will never forgive her. However, Nathose, who has lost all her family, realizes that nothing is more important than it and is certain Senra will find it in her heart to forgive her. Meanwhile, Mihato is tending to Miyu and admires her for becoming the bridge between the two sisters. She then tells her that she understands the pain of losing her parents, but Miyu is confused because she thought Mihato ran away from her violent father. Just then, Yume returns home but gets a slap from Senra for making her worry. As she starts to cry, Senra embraces her and Yume apologizes again, saying she's finally remembered what she said that day. She understands how hard it must be for Senra to hold back for so many years, but Senra says it was immature of her to hold on to such small things. In the end, the three sisters get on the same page.
Hold up, wait a minute. Something ain't right.
They completely forget that Haru is still looking for Yume somewhere in the city. The next day, Haru buys milk with his own money, but it's spilled when a stray football hits it. Just then, a bunch of guys show up to reclaim the ball, but ask Haru for his wallet after seeing how innocent he really is. Just then, Banish shows up in full Karen mode to scare the guys off, and Haru is so excited about it that he wants to tell the whole story to Ren in the shower. However, since Haru looks like a walking thirst trap, Ren gets flustered and runs out of the shower.
Why are you gay?
Just then, Banish shows up and stomps his rear for walking around the house shamelessly. Later, both guys are at the front door when Ren notices Haru in despair. When he confronts him, Haru says he's fine and runs off, which leaves Ren confused. Just then, Mistina comes out of nowhere and reveals Haru has fallen in love with someone from within the house. Ren then gathers Yume and Nathose in one room and invites Haru to tell him that they're already aware of the Cupid he's seeing. They want to know who he's fallen for, and even though Yume wishes it was her, Haru has actually developed feelings for Benes. Despite having their doubts, the group decides to support Haru's quest to get some redhead sloppy toppy. They wonder what'll be the best place to take Benes on a date, and Ren suggests they head to a baseball game. Once there, Benes is so invested in the game that she doesn't even give him the chance to confess. She then asks why he didn't bring Ren, and Haru notes that she mentions Ren a lot for some reason. Benes drops the bomb thinking about Ren turns the sprinkler between her legs on, so Haru gets disheartened and decides to stop pursuing her. The next day, the whole gang goes out to a picnic where Mahito asks Nathose to tell a joke, and much like in real life, a woman doing stand-up is always a disaster.
Women.
Next up, Nero decides to perform a live show, but her sonic attack causes everyone's eardrums to explode. Following that, Senra and Miyu decide to cosplay for the gang in different outfits, and their friendly banter makes the squad laugh. Ageha then steps up to the stage and carves a giant statue of Kojuro by simply kicking a steel pole. Just then, they notice a group of thieves running away after stealing a purse, and the butlers are deployed to stop them. The thieves are captured with minimal effort, which earns the squad praise from everyone in the park. Later, they head home on foot, and Yume has already fallen asleep after playing too much. Ren comments on how once he dreaded the word home, but ever since he's come here, it has become a place of warmth for him. Unbeknownst to him, his abusive father has finally located his place of residence and is on his way to ruin his life. The next day, the squad heads to a forest where the colonel explains that this whole area was bought by Senra as part of her Nature Preservation Act. Senra reveals she comes here to dip her water in the stream and become one with nature, which is her way of relieving stress. Later, she heads out to perform at a live show and asks Ren to come to his room after dinner. Ren then heads to her room as instructed, and while he's hoping to get the shoddy on his love stick, Senra actually just wants to praise him for becoming a bona fide butler. The two get talking about their families, with Senra holding her father at a high place while Ren claims his father belongs in the gutter. Despite all that, he feels like a loser for running away, but Senra cheers him on by saying he didn't run away, but rather came here to serve her. Ren thanks her for the encouragement and even starts crying out of happiness, promising to do his best for her. The next day, she declares Ren will be attending to her, but when Yume protests it's her turn, Moyo explains it's because Senra will be busy with the concert and wants an extra pair of hands. Yume agrees to let her take Ren, and the guy efficiently serves her throughout a hectic day. While heading home, Senra falls asleep on Ren's shoulder, and the colonel advises him to let her rest because she's had a long day. Later, Senra arrives home and immediately starts showering her sisters with love. Mihado then praises Ren for doing a good job at work, and the guy admires Senra for finding time for her sisters no matter how busy she is. Later that night, Senra is going through her sheets when Ren brings her a snack. The guy asks her to take it easy, but she tells him to rest for the night because he's had a long day too. The next day, Senra gives a wonderful performance in front of a large crowd and later asks his mentor if he likes it. The guy says it was nothing out of the ordinary, which sends Senra into despair. Despite her wishes to be left alone, Ren understands her situation and asks her out on a date. He explains that she had a tense face when she was performing, which made her realize that she was lacking in spirit, not skill. She decides to go out with Ren to show her gratitude, and the guy ends up winning a panda plushie for her at a stall. Later, as Senra enjoys ice cream, she reveals this as her first date because any guy who tried to swipe her V-card had to go through the colonel. Unbeknownst to them, the colonel is secretly keeping an eye on them to make sure Ren doesn't try anything funny. The two hit the arcade where Senra lets out her inner demons and catches a lot of attention. Ren suggests they hit a photo booth to escape the crowd, but some girls recognize her as soon as she steps out. Ren wants her to slip away while he handles the crowd, but Senra decides to interact with them for a change. After a full day of enjoyment, Ren recalls having fun at the academy where she didn't have to worry about sponsors. She then gives Ren a chance to conclude this date on a high note, and Ren starts by giving her his jacket. He then starts yapping about how Senra is someone he looked up to from the moment he saw her on TV, claiming he's a symbol of strength for others. He also says he understands the burden she feels of carrying her family after her parents, but Senra loses her cool, claiming only she understands what it feels like to be in this role. Ren tries to salvage the situation, but Senra is done for the day and calls the colonel to drop her home. Later, as Ren walks home wondering where things went wrong, he suddenly runs into his father, who blames him for taking his mother's life. His father starts to mess with his head by telling him that they were a happy family and that he wants to see where they're living now, but knowing how horrible he is, Ren tells him not to step foot in that place. The next day, Ren continues her butler duties for Senra, but accidentally spills the tea on her notes because his mind is still focused on his confrontation with his father. Later, Senra decides to fire him from the job, and Mihado says she won't stay a second without her brother. After Senra leaves, she asks Ren what happened, and the guy says he made her upset during their outing. He purposely leaves his conversation with his dad a secret, worrying that it will harm everyone here. Later, he runs into Miyu, who tells him not to leave the house because she can't abandon a part of her family based on one blunder. Meanwhile, Senra is rehearsing for the next concert, but her mentor realizes her mind is preoccupied. When she returns home, Yume brings her tea and decides to cheer her up, but Senra tells her not to force the issue. After she leaves, Moyu walks in and starts undressing, claiming she's ready to have her pipes unclogged in exchange for re-employing Ren.
That's what I'm talking about.
After she leaves, Senra looks at the pictures she took with Ren in the photo booth and realizes firing him was a stupid mistake because all he was trying to do was cheer him up. At dinner, she tells everyone that Ren's firing will be put on hold, and everyone thanks her for reconsidering her choice. At night, he decides to call his father to tell him that he's not welcome here, but chooses not to. The next day, Venus catches him slacking off with his phone and tells Senra, who asks Ren to tell the truth. Ren insists they wait until the concert is finished, so Senra lets him off the hook for now. On the day of the concert, Ren's father shows up at the front door, and Ren takes him to a discreet location so they can talk. Senra gets a whiff of this and sends both Benis and Nathose after him, only to find Ren getting beaten up by his father once again. Ren doesn't even fight back and does as his father says, but when his father lays hands on Benis, that's when he finally loses it. The guy finally stands up to his dad for all those years of torment, but stops as soon as Senra orders him to. Soon after, the whole family shows up, and Senra makes it clear that Ren is a part of her family now. The old man finally realizes that he can no longer abuse Ren, so after he and Senra leave, he tries to play mind games with Mihado. When that fails, the guy reveals he actually missed Ren because he was the only one who stayed by his side, so Mihado allows him to see Ren once in a while in exchange for him becoming a decent person. Meanwhile, Senra is performing her final rehearsal and decides to enjoy it without worrying about mistakes. Later, she gives the actual performance with a smile on her face, and even her mentor acknowledges her growth. After the concert, Senra heads backstage and gives Ren a kiss as a reward for his efforts, leaving the man done and dusted. The next day, things go back to normal in the house with the exception that now all the sisters are fighting among themselves to see who can get on Ren's ding-dong for the day. Just then, Ageha shows up as well to have her share of Ren, turning the whole house into a dumpster fire. That's it for this video. Leave a like and comment which anime you want us to cover next. If you want more recaps like this, watch this video here.